Oh, okay. It says I'm on already. Hey. Of course, anybody who's checking in on the archives, I always like to remind you that I start the video 5 minutes in advance. Hey, two people on board. Always start 5 minutes in advance, but we will actually start the live session at 12 o'clock. But I always get on so Facebook can build the audience and get everybody comfortable, kind of get a little warning, so a 5 minute warning, and get that last, finish that last memo, that last email, check that Facebook, last check on your Facebook docs, your Instagram. Hey, yeah, by the way, I'm on Instagram now, so I'm upgrading myself in technology. Make that last quick run to the bathroom, do whatever you got to do, but get settled in at 12 o'clock, which is in 3 minutes from now. We're going to start Sporty King Facebook Live. Hey, what's happening, Joanne? Big sister, hugs to you too. And you are so useful. And you know I mean that. So it's good to see from you. All right. Yeah, yeah. I'm starting. I've learned now to see. At first, I thought I had to use my cell phone to go live, and I've learned that I can actually use the computer. Duh, But hey, see, there's one of the things we'll be talking about today: change, and learning technology. I really hadn't thought about mentioning that, but I will be sure to mention that. But technology is a huge change. That's a small change that we need to get used to. But now that I've got it to where I know that I can do it on the computer. I can see the comments better, and then kind of like I'm a little bit more hands free. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, uh, discussing and responding to every comment because I do think it's important to keep this within the time frame that I've set up. That's always one thing that I'll mention. In fact, I like to mention it at the beginning. If you're a speaker, time is important, and when you ask people for a time commitment, you have to make it your point to give them to adhere to that time commitment. Excuse me. So yeah, we're gonna be starting. Oh my goodness, we're 1 minute away from starting. So it's good to see you. 5 people on there, if that's what that means, or if that means five looked and some went away, I don't know. But we're gonna be talking about change today, and here on Facebook Live with 40 King. And it's so funny. I'm trying to also get used to the fact, like right now, it looks like I'm leaning left, but to me, it looks like no, I'm leaning right, but it looks to me like I'm left. I don't know. Hey, Tanya. Good, good, good. You have a good lunch meeting. You watch it later. Okay. Well, we'll see you when you get back. Glad. Thanks for letting me know, and I appreciate you always. So, and lunch is good. I'm doing food for thought. Go on and get to get that food for nourishment when you can. All right. So we're going to get started in less than a minute because it's now 12 o'clock. So let's start talking about change. Yeah, yeah, and I call it, for those of you who have not been with us before, I call it Glue Wednesday because so many times people think that they call Wednesday Hump Day, and I'm very word sensitive, so naturally to me Hump Day, which and also what people use it for, because they say this is the day that we got to get over the hump, that you got to get over to make it through from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. Well, I say we can just as easily call Wednesday the glue day, the day that brings the beginning of the week together with the end of the week. So you can recognize that, yeah, sometimes you live in a whole week. You hear people say they go week to week by a paycheck, but it's about bringing things together. And so glue is GLUE. God's love undoes everything. And as we're talking about glue, well, how can you say undoes when it's glue? Yeah, glue brings it together. So meaning that if you have the proper amount or understanding of God's love in your life, it undoes the problems. The problems are part of the deal, which is also what we're going to be talking about today. So, welcome to Glue Wednesday, and let's talk about, instead of worrying about getting over, let's get it together. First of all, one of the things I'm going to be doing today is reading to you four quotes from one of my books. And the thing is that many people may not know, but I used to be on TV. When I was in Chicago, I was on a show called the Minority Business Report. And in Chicago, it was on WGN, and it was broadcast nationally, syndicated. But in Chicago, it was on Saturday mornings. So every Saturday morning, a lot of people were happy to tune in for me to give the inspirational message of the day. But here's what I did. I took that inspirational message, and we were calling it Starting Today. I took that and I actually made a book out of it, Starting Today. And the reason I'm showing you is because also want to appeal to you entrepreneurs. What I did is I took the first 70, I was on for 2 years, but I took the first 73 quotes or inspirational messages that I used, and I put them in this book. And it's called Starting Today, Daily Affirmations, no, Weekly Inspiration for Daily Living, since I came on once a week. But I want to show you how I did it. I put the quote up here, the inspiration, the affirmation, and then here you see the little logo. It looks like a desktop calendar that you put your things to do list on. So underneath that it says, Starting Today, I will. So if you're inspired by the affirmation, then it may make you decide to write what you're going to do that day to move forward with your life. Maybe I spark some inspiration that you can use. Look what happens in the process. I've got 73 affirmations in here. If you have 73 responses to the affirmation, you have just created your own product. You have just created a book that you can use called Starting Today, and then / your name, or you can make up a name for it. But that's what again, that's what entrepreneurship is also about as well, is regenerating things. We don't necessarily come up with a brand new idea as we come up with a new way to use an idea, especially a workable idea. What's happening, Wayno? Glad, thanks, Joanne. Okay, so again, find ways to help people get it together, and that's what grew about. So today we're talking about change, and a lot of times, especially in our adult life, people say, well, you know what, I don't like change, but the thing is, you love change. You absolutely love change, and the older we get, the more we love change, because the better we get at change. See, change is not a big thing. Change is incremental. Change is a very small thing. And we've done nothing but change throughout our life. Remember the black and white TV? Kids today have to see that in the movie or read about it in the history book. Remember the telephone with I can't even think of what we used to call it. Whatever. We had the dial by turning the wheel around versus push button, and now you can even talk the number in. So change is an incremental thing, and I want you to recognize, I'm going to show you today that you're a lot better at it and a lot more comfortable with change than you think you are. So I'm going to read you 4 quotes. I'm going to use 4 things from my book Starting Today, and then also I'm going to read you a poem about change. But I'll start out with the book, and this is from Starting Today, and the affirmation, the affirmation is change, CHANGE. Challenges, hardships, accomplishments, negotiations, guidance, empathy. Challenges, hardships, accomplishments, negotiations, guidance, empathy. Each of these words conjure up memories of what you've done to survive. You see, you are a master of change. So think about it. That's what I'm saying is all those words are actually signs of change. And what I've decided to do is go down, been reading a book, and so I'm sure I like that one. Change, good, thanks, Joanne. I'm going to go down and give you an example of each one of those letters from the word change, of how I think it's something that you can apply to your life, or possibly something that you've been through, okay? So the first letter is C, and that stood for challenges. Challenges, one of the things I like to do, if you look at change, look at the word change and then look at the word challenge. See, a lot of people, when you want to give a negative tone to change, I say give the positive tone to it and call it a challenge. And how can you turn a change into a challenge? By putting an LLE in the middle. Change and challenge are spelled the same way, but challenge has an LLE in the middle. Similar to how glue brings the weekend and the week beginning together, change brings challenge together with the LLE in the middle. And the LLE stands for life's learning experiences or life's little experiences. But so challenge are all of the things that we've been through in our life already, the life's learning experiences. And even as you think about change and challenge, for instance, we like to say, Happy New Year. Well, a new year is a change. Today is the first day of a new month. See, that's another change. And that could be a challenge because the new year could be challenging to some people, depending on how their last year was or what's coming up, what's on the horizon. The new month could be a challenge, depending on, because your bills start all over. I know, like, oh, good, I made it through my bills in January. But how am I going to make it through my bills in February? So that's another change. Then also look at a birthday. A birthday is a change. Today is somebody's birthday. I know I got quite a few friends who it's their birthdays. Or I call them birth dates or birth date anniversary. My mother used to say you have one birthday and everything else is an anniversary of that date. So if you've ever gotten a birth greeting from me, now you know why I always write happy birth date anniversary or happy birth anniversary celebration, because I'm very word sensitive, and that helps me stay conscious in my life because I'm always playing games in my mind, and that's what keeps me going. That's what you've got to see. Motivation is internal. I don't motivate you, I inspire you. And then what you do is what takes the motivation through. So give yourself credit. A lot of times we give someone else credit. So-and-so motivated me. No, so-and-so inspired you. And then you motivated yourself to take action. Because whatever they inspired you to do, they couldn't tell you exactly how to do it. They only inspired, say, you know what? I want to do that. How can I make that work in my life? How can I make that apply to me? And that becomes the motivation. And that's you. So, enjoy and remember to give yourself credit. I'm always going to tell people to give themselves credit for stuff. I'm never going to allow you to think that external forces control you more than you control yourself. External forces impact you, but you control you based on how you handle it. I'm not going to get too far off the topic, but recognize that everything is a part of the topic because one thought motivates you into another thought. And I know a lot of times people say, "Oh man, look, I didn't mean to get off track." If something someone is saying to you makes you think about something else, that's not getting off track. That's adding a new plank to the track. Because that you thought that this was the way the thought had to go. But then when someone said something, you say, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of this applies. And see, that becomes a change. And that's one of life's learning experiences. And what is life? We all know it, by the way. And then one more thing about change, daily. Every day is a change. If you wake up today the same person you were yesterday, perhaps you never went to sleep. Because every day we wake up as a new person. Because every day we also do the bravest thing that we can do. The bravest thing you can do each day is lie your head down and go to sleep. Have you thought about that? Have you given yourself credit for what it takes for you to decide to lie down and go to sleep? Especially if you think you're taking a nap in the middle of the day and then you're going to wake up and do something else later. It could be your last time closing your eyes. And I'm not being dreary. I'm not being dismal. This is life, y'all. This is the only life we get. I am having a ball. They even call this Facebook Live. And if you pronounce live the other way it's spelled, it's live. Live each day as if it were your last, and one day you'll be right. Now, I got that quote from a good friend of mine named Frank Bucaro. I'll never forget him for that. Live every day as if it's your last, and one day you'll be right. But life, lessons intended for everyone. The challenges in our lives are the lessons that we get. So what lesson can you get from each situation that goes on with you? And then one thing I always remember to say to you, choose your messengers carefully. Choose your messengers carefully. Somebody that you're listening to is going to impact how you act. Just like I said, I don't motivate you, I inspire you. You motivate yourself. So make sure that you choose your messengers carefully, because that's who's going to help you get through the challenges that you have to move on with life. So the C in change is for challenges. How about the H? The H is for hardships. Well, when I look at hardships, naturally, let's put it right at the front of the front of the line is death. Death is a hardship, and it's a change that a lot of people go through. What I think that I've noticed about death, what death does is helps us get in touch with our mortality. That's where we get a lot of the sadness, because suddenly, we're happy going, happy go lucky, having a good time, and somebody dies, and it makes us get in touch with our mortality. Because in the back of our minds, we're saying, haven't you said, oh wow, they too soon, at such an early age, and in the back of your mind, subconsciously, you're probably saying, wow, especially if they died and they were younger than you. Let's say they died at 50 and I'm 61. So if I'm saying, man, going too soon, I'm like, whoa, I didn't die at 50. I didn't even die at 51 or 52. In fact, even when my mother died, one of the ways that I got myself through is I thought about my brothers and sisters and some of my nieces and nephews. And I said to myself, I've had a mother longer than any of my brothers and sisters. Even though it was just by 1 year over my sister, I had a mother longer than that. And so that's what helped me push through. And that's also why I say, here's how I handle hardships. Because we have losses in our life, and the loss is just an LOSS. It's a little obstacle to strengthen your spirit. LOSS. Little obstacles strengthen spirits. And I use my mother's death because when it happened, it was the biggest thing in life. But now it's 10 years later now, and each year I get better at being able to deal with it. And I can look back and recognize that it was an obstacle in my life. I thought it was a huge obstacle at the time because I didn't know how I'd get over it. And then I found that it was a little obstacle. And because I've seen that I have been able to shrink it. Because another thing that hardships do is it help us shift our priorities. Once you have a person missing in your life or a thing missing in your life, you have to now shift your priorities because you still have to go on. So, how will I handle this without that person? In fact, one of the things when my mother died, one of the first things that came to my mind was actually certain meals that I was going to miss, because I relied on her to cook those meals. So at first I was like, oh man, I'm never going to eat that again. Then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going through my. In fact, by the way, one of those meals is I love okra. Now, everybody doesn't like okra, but I like okra stew and okra soup, and that's what I'm going to cook today. But here's the deal, the reason I'm telling you that. When I thought about how I was not going to have that meal, and I thought about my mother cooking it, I tried to picture her seasoning it, because, she's seasoning and talking and flipping the seasoning overhead, round the back. And when I first made it, I'm measuring and, doing the right, ingredients and how much water and all that. And, and so the first time I did it, it didn't come out tasting the way my mother made it. But each time I did it, it came out tasting better. And here's what happened. In the process of replacing that meal that my mother used to make for me like nobody else could, I developed a tradition. Because now for me to make that meal became more of a time where I was reconnecting with my mother, because here's how she did it. And this doesn't taste the way she did it, but I'm getting closer. And what would she say to me if she were here to taste? She'd say, good job, you're getting better. You ain't me, but you're getting better. That's how she would say it. See, so once you have that loss in your life, try to go on, and make that work without that person, and then create a new tradition for yourself, so that you can continue to keep that person in your life. It's just how we say, someone is here in spirit, but that's what bringing them here in spirit does for you. Also, one more thing about hardships. They can create a shift in your life. See, I'm Uncle Sporty, and I'm proud of being Uncle Sporty. But once my mother died, that shifted how I had to see myself as an uncle. Because suddenly, I became the patriarch of the family. And now that changed my role in the family. Everybody went to my mother, including me, But now a lot of that has shifted to where people see my vote as the first vote, as the elder in the family. So, hardships will shift your priority. So remember that. They'll shift your priority. They'll shift your role. And as your role shifts, guess what? That's a change. And that's a change. And that helps you, and you actually get better at it. And then it also becomes a way for you to move forward, okay? So the C is for challenges, the H is for hardships, the A is for accomplishments. Even though we think, accomplishments are an important part of change, and I want to break it down into 4 quick ones, and I'm going to go quick now. 4 quick ones. The first that I want to highlight, let's look at, I went to high school at a private school. I won a scholarship. This program is still available. It's called ABC. It stands for A Better Chance. And it sends inner city kids to private high school. So if you've got junior high school, middle school kids, try to get in touch with that program, ABC, probably abc.org, and try to get your kid into a private school. And even if they're in high school, because I didn't go freshman year, I didn't go to sophomore year. But the reason I bring that up is because that was a big change for me. I was going to a school, it was a prep school in Massachusetts, and here I was, Mr. Harlemite, and my school at the time, out of a 200 student population, there were 7 blacks. And so I did diversity training a lot sooner than a lot of people tend to think about. See, because now it's the big word, diversity training. But hey, at 14, I was in a population of 200, and there were 7 black students. And I had to learn. I had grown up in a mixed neighborhood, but it was predominantly black and Hispanic. And so now I had to learn how to navigate my life through in a situation. And this was all boys, by the way. We had like 1 female teacher, and I didn't take Spanish, so I never had her as my class. And then we had a woman that worked in the cafeteria, and so it's just the environment was different, and I had to learn to handle that change and learn I made some great friends in private school, because it wasn't a situation where it's like, oh my God, there's the black kid, no, we were all young, man. That's why some of the challenges today, you really look at it. It's a lot of the adults are creating some of those challenges that we have, or the problems. But kids mock and mirror adults, and so we train them to do what we need them to do. So I had a great experience, but that was a great change for me going to high school. Then I moved that. Here's how that change affected my next step, which was going to college. And I went to Ithaca College. And the funny thing is that in Ithaca, the change was that I was not challenged by college life because of the great education I got at the private school. And so in the process, since I wasn't challenged by the work, because as a freshman you have to take remedial classes, and I knew some of that stuff. When it was time to pass the test, I could cram for 24 hours and pass the test. But guess what? Meanwhile, my attendance wasn't so good. And the thing that you have to recognize is that when you go to college, tell your students, you go to high school for your parents or other people, 1 through 12. But when you go to college, you go for you. And you have to make a decision that you're going to be there. A big part of college is the socialization process, not just the educational stuff. So if you're sending your kids to college, as you aspire to have them go, recognize that that's going to be a part of it. It's that responsibility that they're going to learn, and the growing up that they're going to learn. So, but the thing is, because I now went from this all-boys school to a co-ed college, when people say, what do you major in? I said, social life. I majored in social life. I was having an absolute ball in college. I was partying. I was not worried about going to class. One time my counselor said, how come you failed this class? I said, because it was it was too early in the morning. It was at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't walk across the campus to get to that math class. And then I think back to the next thing when I went to it was at the Wall Street Journal, and I went back to school. I would go to, I started work at 10 o'clock in one of my years at the Journal. I took a class at Baruch College. I took an 7:30 class where I had to go to class and then go to one class, then take the train, go to work, and then after work, take the train back and go to another class in the evening. So you handle change the best you can, but give yourself credit. But I was, I was majoring in social life, and I tell people, since I only lasted three semesters, I graduated magna cum laude because I had a great time. So even as now, and I think that's something that we need to recognize as adults. A lot of people that, you see where I am now, but guess what? No, I was not the greatest kid. I wasn't the greatest mate. I wasn't the greatest boyfriend. I wasn't the greatest friend, depending on who we were talking to. So relationships make a difference in your change too. So that's how I got through college. From college, I ended up. Now, how did that impact? I left college in December of 1974. I started working at the Wall Street Journal in January of 1975 as a messenger. And I give credit to Click Click back to high school. Because when I went to the employment office, once she saw that I went to a private school, she actually said, whoa, you went to this private school? And she had heard of it. Reputation is important, everybody. Remember that. She had heard of it, and so she called the journal and said, would they take one more person as an interview for the messenger spot? I interviewed for it, and I got it. And then through the journal, change, I had 7 promotions and 8 job titles over my 18-year career at the Wall Street Journal. So click change. Now move that to I want to address that with one of my sayings in starting today, and it's because then I moved to my entrepreneurial world. But here's the affirmation that I did about that. It's called Welcome to the World of Entrepreneurship. Remember to bless the corporate world you left behind. You'll find that it has not gone far, yet may have helped you go forward. Sometimes people forget that they were hired into corporate America to help the company grow. And only through that company growth could they enjoy individual growth. Bless every step as you grow. See, so it's, a lot of people want to, blame companies and corporations for trying to make money. They're in business to make money. You have to help the company grow through your personal growth. And so that's why it's incumbent upon you to constantly get, find the professional development seminars for you to go to. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook Live. You can get some good stuff on Facebook, Twitter, but all of these things, finding ways to connect yourself to a new messenger so you can grow. As you grow, your company grows. But remember, you need to make your personal growth front and center because they've got theirs front and center. But had I not gone to the worked at the Wall Street Journal, I would not have been able to be a successful entrepreneur. So again, don't spend time beating up the spot where you're in. Spend that time learning about the spot you're in so that you can move forward. And then meanwhile, as an entrepreneur, I mentioned that I dropped out of college at Ithaca. I did finally go back, by the way, and I finished online because getting my degree was important to me. I like to say I don't practice what I preach what I practice. How could I go into a school and tell children to how important their education is if I let mine drop? So I actually went back to college because what would happen is I had a situation happen where a kid said to me, well, how can you tell us to go to college? You didn't go and you don't seem to be doing so bad. And see, that makes sense because, but what I had to recognize, and I didn't want to say, well, you're not me, but that's really what it boils down to. See, everybody does not have to go to college. Trade school may work for you. You may have a skill or a gift that doesn't need the further education. It's an individual thing, but get what you need so that you can deliver the message. And so, again, that changed how I talk to students about getting their education. And then also, one of the big changes that I had for me in my entrepreneurial life is as a member of Toastmasters in 1996, 95 through 96, I competed in the World Championship of Public Speaking. Now, what happens in the World Champion of Public Speaking, there are 9 of us competing, but they only mention the winners 3, 2, and 1. And after they mentioned 3, 2, and 1, and they didn't mention my name, that was still an accomplishment for me to compete in the World Championship. So when people say, well, Sporty, how'd you do in the championship? In the contest, I said I tied for 4th. with the other five that didn't take first, second, and third. See, constantly look for ways to upgrade the accomplishments that you make in your life, because that's a big part of change. So, finishes as one of the top 9 speakers in the world in 1996, which also, P.S. by the way, puts me in the Toastmasters Hall of Fame. That is an accomplishment that I'm proud of, and that's one of the things that I'll say is a big proponent of change that I've managed to handle and get through. And I encourage you to lift up every spot that you've got. So the N in change stands for negotiations. Negotiations, important for leadership. You have to negotiate. You have to make a difference. So here's actually, I decided to read a poem about change. And this poem is actually about one of the negotiations that we have to make in those challenging things called relationships. And if you remember, all of my books of poetry, this one is coming from I Found Out I'm Dying, a celebration of life. This one is, my poems always come with a little story, so to give you some insight of how you can use the poem in your life. So here's the read up to the poem. This next poem is called Too Scared, and that's T-W-O, Too Scared, and it's spelled T-W-O because at the beginning of any new relationship, you have two entities that are not completely sure they can trust the other yet. So often in our society, it is accepted that a woman need be on guard from being hurt by a man. But, sorry about this, guys, men are equally fearful of being hurt. In fact, any situation involving change can be applied to this poem, Too Scared. See, I don't know what you think I might do to hurt you that could be worse than what I don't know you might do to hurt me. But I'd be happy to open up and lay all my cards on the table in an effort to make you more comfortable and give us both the chance to better understand one another and our fears, if you'll go first. See, that's the thing about change and new relationships. We want the other person to go first, to make that step. Why are we so afraid to make that first step? Well, because it's a risk. And risk, R-I-S-K, is an acronym within itself. Recognition is success is key. Recognition is success is key. You take a risk when you decide to be who you are and let people know where you stand. But I think that that's the best risk that you can take. So don't be scared to take a stand for what you believe in. Someone will not like it, but that's a guarantee. But that doesn't mean they have to dislike you. And you can dislike a stand that someone else takes, but you don't have to dislike them either. So, come on, we got a lot of stuff we deal with as adults. This grown-up stuff is real. So take that risk. And I think that's also a good lesson for leadership, is take the chance, because a good leader has to also be a good follower. So there's another change. You have to take turns following so that you can lead. When you lead, you do a good job of making that move in the right direction. So the N is for negotiation. The G, as we come down to it, we're starting to close out the word. The G in change is for guidance. Guidance. One of my nieces, Brianna, I call her Bree. Bree just had her first baby. He's a week and a half old. You may have seen my post on Facebook. But I was just talking to Bree on Monday, and I said to her, I said, Bree, be sure that you don't get too caught up in the advice that you get from us, from the older people. Because our advice is going to be based on how we see the world. I think Bree is 23. So our advice may be based on how we would have handled stuff when we were 23, not having actually known what we were doing. So in fact, the affirmation I want to connect to that for you is this one. It's called Know Better. You're 13 now. You should know better. Ever say that to a child? More importantly, have you ever asked yourself why they should know what at which age? And when did you really learn the lessons you know today in your life and business? Neither actually comes with a rule book, does it? You see, your success must mature according to who you are, because we all learn at a different pace. So it pulls in the fact that, I want her to remember, listen to our advice, but, the key is she's got to make the move for herself All of our kids do. So try not to get so disappointed with them. They're trying to figure out the best way for them to go. And a lot of times we'll tell kids you should know better now you're 13, but we might not have learned that lesson at 13. We might not have learned that lesson until we were 17. Whoop, maybe 23. Oh, maybe 33. We might not have learned that lesson until we saw the child do it or do it according to what we didn't think they should, and now we just learned the lesson. So, be really conscious of that and give guidance. And that's why, kids, it's important, for everybody to choose your messages carefully. One of my best messengers is the Bible, a book that you may have heard of. And one thing I like to say is that there are no good stories in the Bible. They're all good endings. In the Bible, there's a consistent cycle of challenge, faith, patience, testimony. Challenge, faith, patience, testimony. And I think that that's not only the biblical cycle, that's the life cycle. And that's what we've got to learn to do, is that when we get a challenge, we've got to have the faith and believe it's going to be all right. Then we've got to be patient and wait for it to come through. And then we get the testimony to tell people about how we went through. So that's the guidance that I think I want you to look forward to, is getting challenge, faith, patience, testimony. Keep yourself in that cycle. In fact, look back at your situations and see how each one fits for you. And the final letter in change is empathy. Empathy. You know what? I never say to somebody, well, you know what? I've been in your shoes. No, I haven't been in your shoes, but I've sat in your row. All of us have dealt with something. But the key is that we have to, just take yourself out of that formula. A lot of times we want people to accomplish things according to who we are instead of based on who they are. So no, I've never been in your shoes, but I've sat in your row. And my situation, my pain may not have been as tough as yours to deal with, but I at least have an idea of dealing with a tough situation, because something that you might think is relatively easy may have been particularly tough for me. Empathy is important. Sympathy is what you don't want to bother with. But it's so important to be empathetic. So here's the message from my book starting today. It's called Empathy. And it says, do you expect good service wherever and whenever you show up, then later find yourself bitter because no one understands what you've just gone through? Recognize that you don't know what's going on in someone else's life that doesn't allow them to realize how wonderful you are. Therefore, show them how wonderful you are by reminding them of how wonderful they are. You see, empathy is a two-way street. It's about empathy. It's about recognizing that everyone's going through something. So you can't tell them to be who you are. All you can do is try to encourage them to be who they are, but not through sympathy. So as I close out, and I'm under a minute, but I'm going to just take us over 1 minute because I came up with some other good words that I want to use for the word change. Okay, we start out by talking about change as being challenges, hardships, accomplishments, negotiation, guidance, and empathy. Well, I want to add some new letters. I want the C to stand for choices and care. Change leads you to shifting your priorities and making choices. Always put yourself in position to make choices, because you make a lot of good choices and you choose what you care about. Okay, so your concern makes a difference. The H, I want to move the H over to handle and help, because you have to handle your business. Change is about handling your business now that you've decided what you want to do. And then, who do you want to help? Because that's the key, is how you can help someone through the changes that you make. My time is going on. Okay, the A, let's upgrade the A to apply and adjustments. Because how will you apply the changes that come into your life? You have to apply them into your life based on what just happened. So therefore, you have to make a lot of adjustments. But remember to give yourself credit for the fact that you do apply and that you do make the adjustment. Give yourself credit. The N, we're going to let that stand for new and need. Because change is also, we like new things, just like you get new clothes. It's a new day. We are very comfortable with newness. But what we do also need to focus on is the needs. Your needs versus your wants will impact your change. And sometimes when you're in a tough situation, sometimes, like in supermarket, I walk down the aisles and sometimes I just mumble to myself, need versus want. Need versus want. Because I don't need certain products on the shelf, but I just may want them. So I need to really understand my needs so I can make sure that change is impacting me in the most positive way that I can. And there's always going to be something new that I feel like I need or want. The G, we're going to let that stand for gifts and good. Because you may have a gift that's going to change somebody else's life. Please share it because it makes a difference. And share, of course, share the good gifts. But I want to get good in there because I want to remind us that God is the other G. And God is so good that if you take one of the O's, either one, take one of the O's out of good, you're going to get God. And that's the best way to deal with any kind of change that's coming into your life. And that's why the E will end up standing for everyone, because everyone is going through some kind of change. And you can make it good or bad for yourself. And that's why we have to let the E also stand for excellence. Make excellence your goal. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes better. Excellence is the best goal that you can have. So keep striving to be excellent. Keep moving yourself forward and recognize that you are a master of change. We're going to change to the end of this message now. I didn't have that figured out what I was going to say. But thanks so much. I'm going to be back next Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon Eastern, to share more glue. God's love undoes everything. And I appreciate you for the change that you've helped me make in my life. God bless you and have a great week. Ciao.